is 7 p.m. on December 10th of 2025. And this is a meeting of the Grafton Finance Committee. We do have remote participants as well as in-person participants. So we will do roll call to open the meeting. We'll start in person.
Greg Marr.
Victoria Duckworth. Online we have Mark Haddad.
Present.
Heather McHugh.
Present.
I got you right as you came on. That was almost unfair. Dan Kusher.
Present.
And Angelina.
Present.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have, as the FinCom, called for this meeting to review the upcoming fiscal year budget a little bit earlier than usual. I'd sort of like to see this as a continuation of the conversation that occurred a few weeks ago now, between our two distinguished guests, Evan and Jay, with the select board and the school committee. We know that this year we're likely looking at a challenging budget year with a challenging deficit, and this is something that we've known for a while. So the idea is to begin these conversations sort of early and often, so that we can strategize, so that we can mitigate where appropriate, and so that we, as particularly right now, the finance committee, can sort of give our recommendations and our approach to helping tackle, the forecast, particularly as it pertains to sort of messaging and positioning and ensuring that we're sort of all on the same page as we go forward. And I know there's more conversations to come with the school committee and the select board as well. And then we'll likely sort of TRICOM that at some point in the near future. But tonight, this is sort of us being able to ask our questions and give our perspective as the FinCom. So I've asked Evan and Jay to present sort of their latest and greatest, but I do want to acknowledge that this is more preliminary than preliminary, earlier than we usually meet. And we acknowledge that when we do meet in February, it's preliminary budget overview. So today, I want us to look at and think about this from sort of a 50,000 foot elevation. We're likely not at the dollars and cents and line item part of the conversation quite yet, but that's okay. I think a directional trajectory and understanding sort of the magnitude of where we're at is going to allow us to, and the numbers they have today will allow us to start having this conversation in a meaningful and impactful way. So with that, if I can turn it over to you, Mr. Broussard.
Sure. Mind if I kick it off?
I'd love you to.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you for having us. Happy to be here to give you kind of a entry into our fiscal 27 budget process. This meeting or this presentation will be a little light on the numbers. I don't present to the select board until next week, the 16th. And so I don't have any feedback from the board as of yet, so I won't go through the whole thing, but I'd like to walk you through the process. We did things a little differently this year, and I think that's going to create a better budget overall. So this year we shifted our approach and focused on performance-based and priority-based budgeting. So essentially, without going through all the slide, and I'll provide this to FinCom later, what we did was break the budget all the way down, almost like a zero-based budget. But instead of looking just at the numbers, you look at the public need as well as the outcomes that we are seeking to achieve. The core feature of this process, we wanted to make better goals and objectives try to find ways to measure our performance. That's difficult to do when you're in a customer service industry. We wanted to link funding to results, increase our accountability and transparency, which I think we've already done a fairly good job of. And then just look for ways to continually improve and find ways where we can be more efficient and effective. So one of the core tenets of this is to align our resources with our policy priorities. So we look at what the select board has for goals. We look at what, the town meeting outcomes are, the feedback that we get from residents, and put that together to try to make decisions based upon what people actually want us to be doing. The challenges of that, which I just mentioned, they're difficult to measure. We can focus too easily on measurable outputs instead of meaningful outcomes. And we really don't have great systems in place for strong data capture on a lot of these programs, right? It's hard to gauge how a new program in the senior center is running without having some kind of data collection in place, and that's hard to do when you're dealing with actual people. And lastly, political will is necessary to shift resources based on results. So again, I won't go into all the details, but it starts with community priorities, priorities from our elected officials. It then evaluates our programs against our priorities, allocates resources based on those outcomes, and then we work on our transparency and engagement. So what we're looking to do is make our budget, this is the underlying tenet here, is make our budget more strategic and less incremental. So municipal governments in general have a tendency to, we can go up by 2.5%, so we go up by 2.5%. Well, we've always done it this way, and that way it went up $1,500, so we increase that line by $1,500. Instead of saying, why are we even doing it this way each and every time, right? Asking those questions, the why are we doing things this way? It encourages our staff to look at their programs in an innovative way and try to come up with different ways to provide the same services or a different variation of the service based on what we think the public is looking for. So all of that is to say that the most direct way you're going to see that, and this is an example, when you are looking at the line item budget, most of the expense lines now have subgroups in each one of them that shows all of the annual outlays of funding, all the way down to a $500 recurring item. So it breaks down what we're doing in a more coherent and transparent way, but it also shows you and the public that we have vetted each and every one of these line items, and these smaller purchases are important to keeping the organization running. And you'll see that, like I said, in every single department.
And just quick question: when you say down to $500, is that an arbitrary statement, or is that where you're cut off for the line items?
It's a little bit of an arbitrary statement because what we found is we had originally tried to say we're not going to go below $1,000, but then there was a lot of stuff that we looked at that we said, well, that's kind of important to make sure people understand where that money's going. So even in this case, it's important to show that in my professional and technical line for my office, $500 of that is already earmarked for the Trails Committee to do all of their activities for the year. And we have a lot of those little pockets of money. So $500 is probably an about number. I think you'll see some in some departments that are probably $60, $50.
Wow.
And then we also wanted to increase our transparency with, the way that we budget. We have to have some amount of buffer in some of these lines because we have a lot of expenses that pop up throughout the year that we couldn't have anticipated, and we need to be able to pivot and do things fairly quickly. And so all of these lines now have an other category, and what other is basically unanticipated costs or things that are so minuscule that Like, we're not putting our Adobe PDF subscription here. That's going to get lumped into a different category. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but it's a more transparent way of us doing that. And it was a great exercise because every department did this exact exercise, looked at all of their outlays from fiscal 25 and what they've done for fiscal 26, found everything that's recurring, and then had those conversations about whether or not that needs to stay here. Are we doing this correctly? Should this be in a different pot of money? Should this be in a different department? We had a lot of those conversations. And we did find some savings. It's not a ton of savings, but we probably found about $20,000 worth of savings in which we were able to either stop funding something altogether because we're underutilizing it, or find a different way to do the same thing. It was I think very enlightening for the department heads to really look introspectively about why they're doing things a certain way and whether or not that's the best way to do it. And they were very forthcoming about saying, let's get rid of this altogether. We used it twice last year and it's $1,000. We can just do it a different way and save that money. So good process in my opinion. All right, now on to the regular budget conversation. So for fiscal year 27, we face kind of similar process concerns that we've had, since the beginning of time. Health insurance cost increases continue to plague us. We're going to go a little bit farther down that rabbit hole in a minute. State aid in Chapter 70, trying to figure out where the state is going to land. Our flexible state aid, which is our, we call it UGA, unrestricted government aid. We won't have that number until well into the spring. And then these are two quotes that I took from, there's an MMA report that I believe I sent around to the Finance Committee that stated, and I thought this was interesting, while rising education aid has enabled substantial new investments across urban Massachusetts, it hasn't provided the same level of benefits to rural and suburban towns. And so that's I know that's very obvious to us because we've been having this conversation, but it speaks to the fact that we're not on an island. This is not a Grafton specific problem. This is what we're seeing throughout the state. And similarly, given the 2.5% cap on local tax increases, the best tool for suburban towns is often an expensive and temporary override. And that's why so many communities have turned to that funding mechanism to try to keep services at the levels that they desire. So moving into this budget cycle, our official statement, which is our bond rating, remains at AA stable. We do have some light in the end of the bond rating tunnel that we may be able to move up to AAA. Based upon changes that we made in our OPEB funding liability. It has really changed our favorability with Moody's and S&P, and we'll find that out later on next fiscal year when we actually go out to bond and have to do a bond ratings call. Our current liability is now $46 million. That's a 30% decrease since 2023. And that is due to changes in our policy approach and funding structure. So when it's about a $20 million savings just by going through that exercise and doing all of that work, which is a crazy good outcome, right? That's $20 million that the Grafton taxpayers will never have to spend.
What kind of changes are those?
So
Broad over.
the broad strokes are we have to write and adhere to a policy that says we are going to fund X amount of dollars from our free cash each year. We are going to continue to invest in an aggressive strategy because we've got so far to go that we want to be as aggressive as possible. We can ride out the highs and lows because we're not at a point where we need that stable withdrawal ability. And then lastly, what we have done is that we will earmark the money that we're currently paying into Worcester County retirement. Once retirement is fully funded, we will shift those funds to OPEB to get OPEB caught up. And then once you've fully funded OPEB, then that chunk of money can go back into into the coffers as capacity essentially. Now, before we get excited about that, that's 2050. So, but we're making great strides. It doesn't feel like it, but since 2023, so we're funded just over $1 million right now. Since 2023, that's 132% increase. And then we are 2.36% funded in the entire fund, which is a 230% increase since 2023. So making just tremendous strides there. A lot of hard work went into developing this OPEB model.
So the 230 is a combination of the decrease in the liability and the increase.
Correct. Yep. Correct. Stabilization. We have $5,191,000 in our stabilization account. We certified free cash this year at a record of $6.8 million. We've already used $600,000 of that for budget. That was that gap for the municipal solid waste program, and then $5,000 for the middle school roof design project. So that leaves us with 5.66 million available for May, which again is pretty darn good. Some of that is one-time revenue. Some of that is like there's $1 million in there that's UPS's building permit. But there is a lot of just policy-driven changes that help us build this free cash account so that we can then do projects like the middle school roof and buy a fire truck and all of those things. You can see here our levy limit has increased from 53,147,000 to 55,679,000. That gives us a Prop 2.5 increase of 1,391,000. We are currently pegging new growth at $1 million, which we think is a reasonable place to be.
So the FY27 levy limit is the 26 levy limit plus Prop 2.5 prop plus new growth
Correct.
from 27.
Correct.
Okay.
So we'll talk about health insurance because this is kind of a big one for us right now. So last fiscal year, if you recall, we had an 18% increase. That was roughly an $800,000 nut to crack. We did that through changing our trash program and a couple of other improvements or changes. We are currently in deficit. When I originally gave this presentation, we were in deficit by about $950,000. That has since decreased, and we're currently at about $300,000. And we are making as many changes as we can to get us across the line with as small of a deficit as possible as we move into fiscal 27. So the current budget is carrying a 15% increase, which is roughly $1 million. I foresee that number coming down. And the reason is that we are moving into the GIC or Group Insurance Commission. We feel that that is going to bring us more favorable rates, but we also think that because of the plan designs, we will be able to steer staff in a way that helps them save money on health insurance, while simultaneously saving the town on health insurance. So the current projection of what we are going to save is $750,000. That is not a savings over last year. That is a savings for what we think we are going to have to outlay. So there's still going to be an increase, and I am leery about pinning us to that $750,000 savings amount. And that is because our retirees are still in a group arrangement with Aetna. Aetna has increased their rates for retirees by 60%, but we are currently in negotiations with Aetna as a group, or trying to regroup, I guess is a better way to put that. So because of that uncertainty, we're riding that 15% wave right now, and we're going to obviously adjust this as we get better data coming forward.
there's also inherent uncertainty in the choices that the public employees make about the plans that
Yeah,
they utilize as
we,
well, right?
what we will do is we will take the group insurance commission numbers that show the breakdown of the plan designs that the average municipality sees. Right, this is the average throughout the state, and then we will use that to make an educated. I don't want to say guess, but I guess educated, informed decision to give our best prediction of what we would see here in Grafton. And you can do that because we have, a certain geography and a certain makeup of staff that live in certain areas. So you can kind of predict what plans may be best for them. So like, if you're in the western part of the state, it's almost it's almost wholly Health New England. This area is a lot of Harvard Pilgrim. You go east and you're into different plans. There's Explorer plans. There's a lot of different options. But we are going to spend a lot more time in this enrollment period onboarding people and showing them that they can probably get better coverage for less money if they make choices based upon their utilization instead of it's always been a little bit of a hands-off approach so that people can select what they want without feeling any pressure. But when that happens, a lot of times people wind up overinsured.
Sure.
Because that's not the goal of most insurance companies, is to get you to spend as little money as possible. I know that's shocking information. But so that's where we're headed. We have our kickoff meeting with GIC on the 18th of this month. So we are in good shape to start, building out that program. And I'll talk more about the forecast when we get there. Other environmental changes, we are carrying around 10% for pension liability changes. We're hopeful that we are on the short side of that, but given our past trend analysis, we've been around 10% pretty consistently. That said, we haven't really had any major staff changes, and we haven't really gotten any word that we are looking at any major hikes, but we're going to leave it there for now because worst case, that's where we're going to end up. Blackstone Valley, we obviously don't have that. We won't have that until the spring. Staff salaries, we've got our contractual increases, our steps and COLA, and just to put on everybody's radar, the town is negotiating 2 union contracts coming into this fiscal year. So those will both kick off hopefully in January.
Which ones?
It is GMEA and the library union.
So for BVT, can they give us I know they can't give us the per student but can they give us the enrollment numbers that it's going to be based on? So we have some idea?
Yes, probably. I have always had good luck with Dr. Fitzpatrick in reaching out to him early and saying where you think we're going to be, and he would give me a back of the envelope. This is I think where you'll end up, with the understanding that I won't make that a thing if he's off by a little bit of money.
Yeah.
I don't have a relationship with the new superintendent, but that is on our radar of someone to connect with, sit down, and try to get those numbers.
I would assume they'd at least have their enrollment numbers by now. So even if we can make our own estimates based on that, but just have some idea.
Yeah, it is tricky because you need to know the enrollment of all the other communities as well, because all of that plays in. Mm-hmm. It is a daunting formula. Yes, the short answer is yes. We plan on reaching out and trying to get that data earlier rather than later. We obviously have a lot of federal and state government uncertainty, inflation, costs rise at rates that outpace what we can raise on local taxes. We've got tariff and manufacturing costs that are starting to show themselves, but will likely show themselves more in our. I'm gonna assume we're gonna see that a lot more in our capital plan. Because those big ticket items that they take a hit, and then we've witnessed some loss of grant opportunities with federal grant scalebacks, and even grant opportunities that are available. There's less people working in those departments, and they're harder to actually get and move along. All right, so next steps, we are, we've finalized all our budget requests. We are presenting the full forecast to the select board on the 16th and our full budget, at least first pass to the select board on the 16th. I will show you our working forecast, as long as everybody understands that by next week it will look very different, because we're going to continue to work on it. It already looks drastically different than it did 3 weeks ago. So, what can you expect out of this budget season? My plan is, in conjunction with the school department, to give you 2 budget options. Last year we had a lot of budget options, and it got really muddy really fast. And there was a lot of work that went on for plans that never came even close to fruition. And so what we plan to do is give you a full budget that addresses the service delivery needs of the community. It will include revenue supplements, which may include an override, right? This is what the baseline budget is. This is what you would need to raise somehow to get us across that line. And it'll be bifurcated into a fully funded budget with a contingent portion, right? So this is the things we'd have to reduce. And it'll be very preliminary on the 16th. We haven't drilled down all the way.
A quick question. So, your full budget is this sounds like 3 options to me. What do you mean the full budget will be bifurcated?
So the full budget shows you the entire picture, but our revenue would have to be bifurcated because we have our regular revenue stream, and then whatever the deficit is what would have to be raised either by an override or whatever other means we do. However, it needs to be contingent, because if you go to town meeting and they vote no, you've got your budget that keeps us all here with reductions, and if they vote yes, then you can start to move to the contingent process.
I see. Okay, so you will have your recommendations for what is in the sorry bucket.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. You say the sorry bucket?
That's what it. Yes.
I'm gonna put that in the next PowerPoint.
Sorry.
No, I like that one. I like that one. And then a reduced budget, which balances if no action's taken at town meeting and we have to take the short calls. It's really not much different than the bifurcated budget,
Right. That was my.
but it's just in one place.
Yeah. Fair.
And so that would
That's
show.
mostly a procedural thing for town meeting. Is that-
Yeah, we need to be able to show. We can't guarantee that an override or whatever the future holds passes. And if it doesn't pass, this is what you have. If you look back at the last override, that warrant had a contingent budget in it. So that's what we're working on. And those would result in staff reductions and service delivery changes. That's naturally how that goes. The current budget deficit, if we were to do nothing and just take the forecast as we have it, is roughly a $2.3 million deficit. Again, that number will change by next week. Hopefully to the negative side as we continue to tweak things. But that's where it sits if we do absolutely nothing. Some other data points to keep in mind. Remember that we pulled the municipal solid waste program out of the tax base and created an enterprise fund. I'm working with the municipal solid waste committee to give a recommendation to the select board. They're doing a fantastic job. It is a ton of data and a very confusing process because every town's got some little nuance that you have to factor in. But I think we're making tremendous progress there. I should put this as fire department staffing so that my staff don't see fire staff.
That's a fair self.
Yeah, that was a good. As I read it, I'm like, ooh. So the fire chief is going to request 2 full-time positions. We have a strong chief here in Grafton, so that process looks like what that process will look like is he will have to go before the select board and see if the select board wants to vote to include that increase in the budget. I don't know if they will or not. But it is in our ClearGov system, so I want to be transparent that that exists. I don't want anybody to be surprised if that's part of the conversation while we're also having this other conversation, right?
Question on the municipal solid waste. Have those been public meetings or is
Yes.
that all? Okay.
Yep, they're all recorded. Actually, one was playing in the hallway when I was on my way down here.
Thank you.
I was up there yammering on about trash bags. But yeah, it is. I find municipal solid waste tremendously interesting, so I've enjoyed that process quite a bit. So we're going to continue our discussion about health insurance. We have to kind of pinpoint that, whittle that down. That was the switch to GIC was literally 4 years of work to get the unions all in alignment to agree to it. So I think that it is a great option for Grafton. But there's some uncertainty there that hopefully we glean some more information on the 18th.
If I may interrupt you,
Sure.
Dan does have his hand raised.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have a question with the fire department staffing. The why does that need a select board vote? Is that just because you want to get their explicit buy-in, or is there an actual necessity for that?
No, like years past, I don't want to get the select board's buy-in on anything. No, I'm kidding. Matt's sitting in the room. That was just for Matt's edification. No, back in I think it was 21, the town of Grafton voted to make the fire chief a strong chief. And so the strong chief provision makes it so that the fire chief doesn't report to the town administrator. He reports, or they report to the select board directly. And so anytime that the fire department is looking to make large changes to the way that they're operating, they need to go in front of the select board to get their buy-in and their vote in order to move that. So we haven't done that a ton because the fire department's pretty much been status quo since the strong chief provision. But you know, in a time where we're talking about cuts and not being able to get across the line, I think it is important for the select board to voice their opinion on whether or not this is the time to do that. And if they voice their opinion that yes, this is the time to do that or something with increased staffing, I need that direction to include that in the budget because I'm not looking to grow any of our departments in any way in this particular budget process.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. As a digression, I would also think that that's a conversation that's going to come up during the upcoming charter review, because while the strong chief provision was adopted, the charter was never amended to reflect the strong chief provision. And I mean that in the way that there's nothing that calls out the fire chief's budget process being any different. There's nothing that allocates or denotes how that management structure looks. So usually there's a rider in there that tells you how to do that. Lastly, the town is planning to we've looking at our expense lines. Most of them are level funded from what they were last year. There will be a few that have some increases, and we'll obviously go into great detail on what those increases are. But they're generally needed increases to keep us at level services. They're not service increases. They're just the price of whatever software we had went up by 10%, and we have to do it because that's what we use every day. Those type of things. And that's it for the basic presentation. I am happy to show the working document version of our forecast. It is fairly catastrophic, but there are a few things in there that I think we need to note are going to change, and I'll talk through them briefly.
Yes, please.
Just bear with me.
And can I index on the beginning of your presentation where you sort of went through the new philosophical approach to budgeting this year being not priority based, being performance based. I think that is an excellent way to go through line by line and just sort of change folks' mindsets. And can I also say that the number that you pulled out, tell me if this is the right number to index on, a savings of about $20,000 from that exercise, you know, as a percentage of the entire budget is essentially negligible. And to me, that speaks to how careful you and all of your department heads have been over at least the last 3 years that I've had the opportunity to be a part of this process, while creating their budgets, and how thoughtful everyone has always been and how careful everyone has always been. Just figured that was worth highlighting.
Oh, thank you.
That you folks do an incredible job running this town on what's been a shoestring budget for the entire time I've been here.
Yes, thank you. You have great department heads here, great partners in the school, and we're always looking at ways to be more efficient and effective and save money where we can. Yeah, thank you. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to put this up on the screen, and then wait, I'm gonna figure it out. When I walked into this room and opened my computer earlier, it decided it was a good time to update all of my Office suite, so it closed out every box I had open.
Cool.
Lovely.
Yeah, it was great. I was having a great time while you were opening the meeting frantically. All right, so again, a lot of these numbers are going to get tweaked, and they're especially going to get tweaked between now and the 16th. As it sits, without any other correction, we are, as I said, about $2.3 million in the red. We need to make some changes and some philosophical adjustments to how we are budgeting or how we are forecasting health insurance moving forward. Because this projection as it sits right now, or this forecast as it sits right now, most certainly is health insurance heavy, and that can be trimmed back. We're also working on updating some of our revenue. We've added about $500,000 in revenue into the program that we were a little probably too cautious on in the last budget cycle. Not because we were aware we were going to be too cautious, but because it turned out we were too cautious. That was the best we had at the time. And so we've done some of those changes. So now you can see, as I said, as you move out to 2031, it gets worse and worse. I don't think that this number at 11.2 is accurate. I think that that is going to trend downwards again between now and next week as we refine some of this. But this is what we're working with currently.
Mark, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, Evan, when you did the projection last year and you called out what would happen in fiscal 27, is this 2.3 million in line with that?
It's currently a little bit higher than it was.
That's health insurance driven?
It's health insurance driven, and again, I think we're gonna see that number decrease as Mary and I work on it.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think we're gonna be better.
What was it last year?
I'd have to pull it up. It was not 2.3 million. It was less than that. And I don't have that. That'll be part of our conversation on the 16th.
So the current general funds shortfall for 26, that's reflecting that 300,000 that the health insurance is short.
Yes, that is us projecting what we believe the worst case scenario would be with that. Oh no, sorry, you're talking about the deficit.
Yeah.
My plan for the deficit is free cash. So we would do that in the Maytown meeting.
Okay, so where is the the
Health-
shortfall coming from?
This shortfall here.
Yes.
So this shortfall is, if you look, most of that money is tied up in either schools and yeah, I know, I was trying to think of a better way to talk about it, but
You killed it.
yeah, I just put it out there. And our unclassifieds, which are our pension liabilities and our health insurance. Those are the large drivers of any municipal budget right now. And that remains true for us. That's where you're going to see the biggest increases.
So what I'm wondering is, what changed since town meeting that we now have a shortfall where we did not have a shortfall at town meeting?
I don't. Are you talking about fiscal? Are you in fiscal 26?
Yes.
That number's not right.
Okay.
Don't even look at that number.
Okay.
We are to the good by a couple $100,000.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why I was reluctant to even show this, is because I know there's an error here.
Okay.
We're not properly capturing what we did on our recap and on our LE4 and everything else. It needs to be tweaked, and that is going to tweak some of those other numbers, which is, again,
Okay.
I'm trying to be as transparent as possible,
Yep.
but I need, and I know you know this, I'm not picking on you, Greg, but I need some faith that these numbers are in the ballpark, but they've got to be refined.
Okay. I was expecting that for the future. I wasn't realized that you also had issues with the current one. on
So
there,
we're having this particular document, our working document, is currently broken, and we are sorting that currently. I should have just hid that column in hindsight.
No,
You explained it.
Yeah,
appreciate the transparency.
sure. So again, we continue to refine this and try to get the best numbers we can for you.
Right. It's directionally accurate, even if it's not.
Yeah, that's a great point. We know when you look at what we're projecting in unclassifieds and in school and in general government, public safety, that gap widens. So
Is there a similar issue with the decrease in the general fund revenue between 26 and 27? About $500,000 there. Looks like mostly in available funds / other. Is that some of our one-time money and stuff?
some of it's our one-time money, and some of it is that we've been making tweaks to the formulas for our revenue projection. So it's going to show up in 27 and not in 26.
Okay.
I mean, I can ask the impossible question, which is, I mean, when we do tweak it in 6 days. I mean, 2.32, it goes down 300,000, whatever, 2 million. I mean, that's still not. That's not in the couch cushions.
No, I mean, we're not going to close that to zero.
Right.
I think we did all of that work
Last year.
last year.
Yep.
We really, the school department and the town, we really pulled every rabbit that we had
Yeah.
out of the hat. I probably should say that, otherwise it's just an odd statement. But there's not a lot of buckets left to find savings in.
Right, but and I think it's worth stating that very plainly, is that we were having conversations last year about an override, and it kind of vacillated between, are we going to look at 3-year, 5-year, are we going to do a 1-year mini override, and you two were able to play very clever games, move funds around, but we played them, right? I think it's worth very plainly stating that we sort of move things around as much as we can.
Yes, and I also think, and I don't want to, I'm going to speak about the school budget for just a second, is that some of the things that Dr. Cummings had made changes last year were very plainly stated as short-term changes that are going to have to be fixed at a
100%.
certain point.
Right.
And we need to be aware of that was kind of we're gonna make some sacrifices to punt to fiscal 27, but we're gonna have to make some tough choices when fiscal 27 gets here, or tougher choices, let's say.
Right. The HR headcount immediately comes to mind.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did last year was the addition of the new medically fragile program. How is that going?
It's great. Do you want me to give an overview?
I would love that.
I prepared just a simple one-page handout. I greatly underestimated the online piece, but I can speak to all the pieces, and I think I can make it very clear. So here
Yeah.
we go. I'll be quick when I do it.
I have all the faith. Thank you, Greg.
Right. I will try to keep it simple and to the point. We're a little bit ahead on in terms of timing. Last night we presented the preliminary FY27 budget to the school committee. The full preliminary book is available on our website right now. What we presented, and I can go through it, but truly a bare bones level service budget. It's preliminary. There needs to be time for the school committee. What we talked about is they could decide to add positions back, which I'll talk to in a second. To give you a little history that I know everybody here is well aware of, when we basically reached that override capacity off of the last override, that was the end of FY24. In FY25, obviously without another override, we were faced with, on the school side, a gap of about $1.2 million. We knew that possibility was coming, of course. Yeah, an override is never guaranteed. So for years, we had tried to build up our revolver accounts, primarily school choice, kind of for that rainy day. And that was FY25 for us. So that got us through FY25 with the hope maybe in FY26 an override, or every year we talk about, will the state magically fix their funding? And great. Sure enough, FY26 comes. We were out of revolver funds. So I'm sure you recall, it seems like years ago that we met right here, but we had a four-prong approach. We definitely did not want to do it. It was the last rabbit in the hat that Evan talked about. Is best practice is to have, for us, it would be over $1 million, but at least $1 million in excess circuit breaker funds that can be used for special education tuitions. You have those in reserve. Kids move in all the time. That's big, but we spent it out. So we spent out about $1 million. We made staff reductions, 6.5 FTE. That totaled 447,000. Non-personnel reductions stuff. So equipment, supplies, etc., of about 162,000. And then what Greg talked to is we invested in maintaining a specialized program at the high school, and we've brought in students from out of district, tuition-based students that have covered our costs and over 200,000 in revenue. And that's great. We're maxed out. We can bring in more students, but right now we can't do that again. We've already expanded our programming. So that's worked out beautifully. But I wish we could do it, double it every year. We just can't. So that brings us to FY27. We'll literally go into next year with $0 in terms of circuit breaker carryover, which we've never even come within $1 million of doing before. We've got limited school choice reserves. We have a very super healthy school choice program with a long wait list. That's wonderful. But we're using most of the money that comes in for salaries. They're just offsetting costs. So we don't have anything saved up in reserve. And as I just mentioned, we've maximized that revenue generation. When I talk about bare bones, if you look on the flip side, I simply lay out those 6.5 positions that were reduced last year. With what I presented to school committee last night, at this point, knowing that it's going to be so tight, we've only brought one position potentially back, and we set that aside at $123,000. We've labeled it under HR director, but being that it's December 10th, you'll see. The caveat is it's going to be dependent on needs. That might be 2.5 paras. That might be a teacher and a para. If we have anything that comes up that's going to trump that, we may have to pivot. But that's the only new position in this FY27 budget. We had probably 8 positions requested by principals for various reasons, where of course their job is to advocate for trying to get better and better. But as it stands now, the FY27 preliminary school budget only has this one position in it. So going back to the other side, in summary, we have 3 central cost drivers. Those are personnel costs, we're 85% people, of about $2 million. Out of district tuitions, we do a fantastic job with our programming from pre-K all the way through 12. I don't know of a district I don't know of one that does a better job with that. We retain over 99% of our students in Grafton, but there are nobody's fault. There are always students who have medical needs, a whole array of needs that cannot be met in a public school setting, and they attend school outside of Grafton. Over the last 5 months, we've had 6 students move into the district they moved in to Grafton, wonderful, but they were already placed in out-of-district placements. If it happens mid-year, unless it's a collaborative, you don't own that tuition. So at the end of last year, we didn't have to scramble and find $700,000, but we own that this year. So that's almost entirely the move-in students, and transportation is almost entirely special education, and that's corresponding with these out-of-district placements. So those 3 things those actually total more than our increase of about $3 million, 6.32%, through reductions of the same approach that Evan spoke to that we've been using for years. We've cut anywhere we can to still, again, keep the level of service that we have been providing, but it's definitely tighter than ever. And this is the first year, and I've been here a long time, that, as Evan said, I look into that hat and there are no rabbits. And I can take any questions you have, but that's the quick thumbnail overview.
So you said that you might be able to grow a few more people into the,
Yeah, we'll
medical
definitely
program,
bring
but-
some students in.
but it'll be incremental increases. Probably.
Correct, and it's most likely going to be offset by kids moving into the district. It just last week we had 2 students move in, both collaborative students, and those you own. Like, we have to find $200,000 and make it work. So there's a give and take with the program that's attracting kids because just things happen. But it's been fantastic, and there's room for growth. So I expect that we will continue to bring in outside students.
Angelina?
So for the 6.5 positions that you got rid of last year, can you just remind me again?
Yeah,
They
sorry.
were existing positions, or they?
Sorry, I'm
those
acting
weren't.
like you could see the slide. We had a half-time preschool teacher, that 1.0 HR director, a full-time technology position, a math intervention teacher, 1 maintenance position, and 2 of our 4 curriculum coordinator positions.
Okay, and those were all positions that were previously included in the budget, not things that you were requesting
Oh, yeah,
that got
correct.
cut.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
correct.
so those were actual
Existing
cuts to the
positions.
yeah.
That's correct.
And then Evan, how much did you say our certified free cash was
Well, it was 6.8 million.
for this year?
Correct.
I feel like we've talked about this before, but I can't remember. The free cash be used to bring back the revolver funds, like to put into the school, or?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
It's really one-time revenue, right? It's or one-time use funds.
Right.
Um,
But isn't that what revolver funds are? Sort of like a savings account?
No, the revolving accounts I don't think are considered one-time revenue.
Okay.
I can
I'm sure I'm
that question-
oversimplifying it, but it-
but so you're saying what we would do is take some free cash and put it into the revolving accounts to replenish those for
Right.
the school district.
right.
I don't think that's an allowable use.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not.
but
I think that division of municipal and schools, everybody would do it if you could.
Right.
And we have so much more flexibility with the school revolvers. I think always on the municipal side, you're jealous of that,
100%.
and rightfully
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But isn't free cash for anything? No.
Well, let's put it this way. In theory, yes, but not without consequence. So you can do a lot of things with free cash, but you have to suffer whatever is on the other side of that, whether that's a bond rating hit, or a slap on the wrist from DOR, or a much bigger problem with DOR. But I have no problem asking that question. But I also don't know that I would advocate for that, even if we
Okay.
could. I think that again is just kicking that. We're not fixing our problem for the
Yeah,
for the
no. I wasn't suggesting that it was a solution to that. It's just a solution to these schools not having any savings.
Yeah,
That's all I was thinking. I know that that's not going to solve
gotcha.
the operating budget funding.
Yeah,
Okay.
understood. Thank you.
So Jay, above the 6.5 that we cut last year, were there other unfilled positions that?
I don't believe we added any new positions.
I say, are there things that you've not filled in the past in order to do this
Oh,
that we might-
100%. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We've definitely, I mean, it's unfortunate, but this is what happens. It
Yep.
wasn't that long ago we were talking about good to great, and
Yeah.
we don't talk about that too much. I think we're doing a very good job, but we're trying to hang on. And we, of course, with what the staff we do have, and we have a lot of great things going on. Just like what Evan talked about, we're obviously every day trying to get better, improve. We've got our benchmarking. We've got lots of good things in place. But I said to the school committee, it almost didn't feel, even though it's an increase, I get it. But as superintendent, it's out of this budget with almost such a big district to look to add back one position
Yeah.
and not the others that we cut and not improving, that's just not great. But so it might be too lean, to be quite frank. But
Dan?
Yeah, that really concerns me. If we go in with this proposal of too lean, it's only going to go down from there. A lot of people in Grafton want to do good to great, and it seems like that's never on something that the select board is ever interested in hearing, but it's there. And I think if the budget begins with a too lean position, then there are voices involved in this process who are going to want to compromise down from there. And that's something that I'm really worried about, is that we end up finding a so-called middle ground where there are further cuts to services and an override, and nobody's happy about it. And then it doesn't even get passed. Like that's what I feel like is the direction that this might head in, and I'm concerned.
yep. And just on my, thank you, Dan, just on my end, the school committee has talked about that. I want to be crystal clear that it's obviously super early in the process. I simply provided just the preliminary and asked them, they're going to give consideration at our next meeting, give me direction in terms of adding more back, adding requested positions, whatever that might be. So at their next meeting, I should have a lot more direction as to where they want to go, and that may very well be in line with what you just talked about.
It's a fair point, and Dan, I recall you saying this, a similar thing last year, and it does feel a little bit that it has come to pass, right? That we did sacrifice as much as we did, particularly on the school side of the budget. And the numbers do feel stark, right? Not a question, but I hope a fair statement. So you will be presenting a slightly more refined version of the budget forecast out through FY31 to the select board and the school committee in 6 days. Is that the plan?
It's only 6 days away. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to put it in such.
Well, that's a
Sorry.
bummer.
With the
Victoria.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's the plan, and that's kind of what we've been aiming for. So, I think that is directly why our numbers are a little unrefined tonight, because that's what we're shooting for, is the 16th.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that one later. It's the high school concert.
No?
I'll watch it live.
Okay.
I'll have to watch the concert later. I mean, ultimately, given all that we've discussed this evening, that there, over the last 2 years, post override, we were in a position where we were wise enough to make that override last 2 years more than we thought it would. However, we are now simply out of wiggle room, given sort of all of the factors that are in play here, from dwindling state aid, dwindling opportunities for federal grants or state grants that obviously trickle down, increased inflation, COLA understandably increasing under all of these circumstances. I think we do have to start a very serious conversation about putting an override forward to the town in the spring meeting. So the question then becomes, I mean, how many years out do we look at? How many years would be like this override to hopefully pad us for? What is that number? Hopefully that 2031 number does drop significantly, right? And then packaged on top of that, how do we ensure that everything that you've just told us and our historical knowledge as the FinCom is something that we can share with the town of Grafton, so that they understand that we are good stewards of their hard-earned tax dollars, and yet we want to continue making this town the best possible place to live. Angelina.
Well, I also think I don't disagree, but I think that we need to start looking at the ways that we're spending money and what things. I think as a town, we need to make decisions about where we're spending our money and what services we want to continue at what level, in order to give people more options than just an override. And I'm not saying that I'm advocating for cutting services, but I think it's a conversation, looking at that forecast. And I know that forecast is not where we're going to end up. I've been through this enough times to know that, it's definitely going to change. But kind of philosophically, we are in a position of our costs are constantly going up more than our revenue is going up. And while we're in the same position as every other suburban town in Massachusetts, that's not going to change anytime soon. And, you know, the tax burden that it's putting on people has to be balanced against the services that people are getting out of it. And I just think it's like a bigger conversation than just putting an override forward. And I'm not saying that you're oversimplifying it at all, but I just want to put out there that I think that, you know, where we're spending our money needs to also be discussed as part of this. And I'm sure the select board will get into it too, but.
It's a very fair point. And I was sort of thinking about, Evan, going back to the part of your presentation where you will also be presenting the contingency budget, you know, the pieces that are in the sorry bucket, if we want to trademark that. Who are all of the voices at the table that help make that decision about what line items go into that contingency bucket, to Angelina's point? Mark?
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. I'm extremely disappointed, and I'm gonna lay blame on the finance committee as well as the select board and the school committee. We dropped the ball last year. I remember conversations saying, well, we're going to start right away, and we're going to be talking about the budget every week, and we're going to be getting ready for a fiscal year 27 because we know what's going to happen. And I feel like it's deja vu. This is the same conversation we had last spring, and nothing has changed. I see no planning. I see nothing. And I blame the finance committee. We should have been meeting all summer talking about this and forcing decisions earlier in the process so that we're not sitting here on December 10th, where next week, December 16th, the budget's going to be presented to the select board, and then they'll hem and haw about it over then the holidays are coming. Nothing's going to happen over the Christmas holidays and the New Year. Then we're going to get into the new year. Next thing you know, it's May, it's town meeting, and we have no plan, no anything. I'm extremely frustrated. I'm extremely disappointed as a member of the finance committee and a person in this town right now. Nothing has changed in a year. This is the exact same conversation we had last year. There's been no change. It's not Evan's fault. It's not Jay's fault. It's our fault. We should have forced the issue. Nothing has changed. I am extremely frustrated. It's very, very disappointing.
Thanks, Mark. Dan?
I'm pretty sure this is much earlier than it was last year, but I agree it would have been nice to get here a bit earlier. I also understand that like it takes a lot of work to put this stuff together, and the numbers, you know, that we're only just figuring out the health insurance stuff, but this is definitely earlier than we started last year. Yeah, I think
we said we were going to start in the summer, Dan, and we didn't start in the summer.
That's
it's
true.
December. I don't care how early it is. We didn't follow through with what was said to us last May or April before the town meeting. We said we're going to start in the summer. We're going to go. We've done nothing. It's December 10th. This is the first time the finance committee is talking about the FY27 budget.
Yeah.
Skip?
Well, I got a little bit different opinion on this. Yeah, we should have been pushing this. This isn't our job to push. It's from Evan's 5 bosses that should be out in the front making these decisions about these buckets and everything. We are a warrant advisory committee, and we advise the town meeting on the items in the warrant. We're not responsible for putting stuff on the warrant or anything. We support or don't support warrant items. In us having to take a lead on this really isn't the right thing for us to be doing if the folks that are supposed to be leading us are actually doing it. And I think we've had this discussion in the past.
I'm not totally sure that a blame game and finger pointing is the way out of the situation that we find ourselves in. I don't think any of you are wrong, and I don't disagree with any of you completely, right?
I'm not trying to make it a blame game. What I'm saying is we're working with what we have for a charge under the charter, which is, again, to review the warrant items and make suggestions to the town meeting. And that's really it.
Doesn't mean we can't help move the conversation,
Exactly, Mark.
Skip.
And we've had that discussion the last several years, or this very discussion. And yeah, Dan, this is the same time it comes up every year after the preliminary stuff is sit here. And we all know that the town simply does not raise enough money to take care of its expenses the way people would like to take care of their expenses. To try and knock off services, what are you going to do? You'd have to go to a town meeting and vote up or down everything, and that would be chaos.
Fair point. So for us this evening, next steps, I think, are certainly hearing what the elected boards and officials do recommend, and the feedback that they do have on the 16th, and then, to Mark's point, continuing as a finance committee to continue to push from our side as best we can to continue that conversation, to ensure that whatever the contingency budget might look like is something that as many voices as possible have some stake at that table. And again, to ensure that sort of the messaging makes sense and that we agree from a finance committee perspective with what the other committees are saying. Heather?
Hold on. Sorry. I mean, I understand everyone's frustration with what's going on, but it doesn't sound like Evan and his department heads haven't been doing everything. Obviously they have. I mean, they've been trying to look at every line item of the budget and where they can get money. No one wants an override, and I'm pretty sure that everything that Evan has been doing for the past year is so that we don't have to have an override. So it sounds like he's been working towards that. So it's just because we haven't been involved doesn't mean that things haven't been done. But again, two-sided. I do understand the frustration, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Evan. I'm pretty sure you guys have been working for several months trying to find ways to cut costs so that an override doesn't have to happen. And if it does have to happen, I'm assuming you have a plan for that. Just we don't know what it is because we haven't, we don't sit in your office all day, and we can't meet, all the time because your plans, like you said, are going to change within 6 days. So if we do meet every month, it's might possibly not even be worth it because you do change so often because things change and you get information from the state and you get information from BBT, and it's a constant, struggle to keep things constant, and to get all information that's correct. So I don't think we all should be beating ourselves down because I don't think that it's necessarily anybody's fault. I think that this is just a continually fluid budget that it's, it is what it is, and we don't know everything right now. We probably know less now than we did 6 months ago because things change. I mean, who knows what the state's going to do? Who knows what the federal government's going to do? So it's hard to even budget. I mean, I've been budgeting my entire, that's what my job is. I budget. It's hard. It's not, and it's frustrating, but I mean, I don't think we should all be beating ourselves down because we haven't been meeting every single month to talk about this. I mean, I don't know. it's that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Heather.
Well said.
Mark, your hand up when first.
Yeah, you're missing. I guess I wasn't clear in my point. My point is last year we knew we were coming into a deficit. I'm not saying Jay and Evan aren't doing their job and the department heads aren't doing their job. They are. They're working hard. They're doing a great job. And the point that Victoria made earlier on the way our department heads have been working is a great point. They are great department heads. They are doing a great job. The point I'm trying to make is if there was direction given to Evan and Jay, they would be building budgets right now. They would be having public forums and they would be talking about what we need to do. It would either be, listen, we need an override. We're going to ask for $2.3 million on override. Or, by the way, we are going to be cutting services because this is the direction that we've gotten. They have no direction. That's my point. I'm not saying they're not working hard. I'm saying there's no direction. And that's the frustrating part that I see. We talked about this last spring and we said we were going to start working. We were going to start planning over the summer. We were going to start giving direction. We were going to start having policy discussions. We were going to start planning for the fiscal year 27 budget. We are in the same cycle we're in every year. Nothing's changed. That's my frustration, Heather. I'm not saying us meeting every week is going to change things. Certainly, I've been budgeting for 41 years as a town manager. I understand how the process works. I'm saying if there was direction, there would be better planning. And that's all I'm saying. Yes, numbers change all the time. You're constantly refining them, but there was no direction to Evan or to Jay on what to do. They're driving the bus, and it's not their job to drive the bus. It's our job to drive the bus, or the select board's job to drive the bus. That's my point. And I'm sorry if I wasn't clear before. I'll stop talking now.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think, like what Skip said, we don't drive the bus either. So I don't, and I'm not offended by what you said at all. I mean, I get it, but I like Skip said, it's not our job. And even if we do meet and talk about it, you know, I kind of have to laugh. My husband said, "Do you guys even have any power?" Well, not really. I mean, we're an advisory board. We help, you know, if people look at our recommendations, some people don't even know what we do. So I get what you're saying. I'd like to have more, you know, power is not the right word, but I don't think it's the finance committee that can be driving that unless I mean, if you disagree, I'd love to know how we could do it, because I don't know that it's in our power to do that.
Well, Evan said earlier there's going to be a charter review process starting forward. Maybe the charter review committee needs to take a strong look at the charter and look at the way that the budget is formulated. Maybe the finance committee needs to have more authority in the way the budget is put together. Maybe that we need to change the process, because I don't think the way that the process is in the budget right now is working. And I think maybe we should go to the charter review committee and advocate for change and change the way that the finance committee participates. In a lot of towns, the finance committee is the one that puts the budget together with the town administrator and brings it to town meeting, not the select board. The select board is the advisory board when it comes to the budget, not the driving force. And it takes politics out of decisions when you have a finance committee making the decision, because we're not running for office, we're appointed. And we have a little bit more skin in the game. So maybe, to answer your question, Heather, maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to change the process so that the finance committee is driving the budget and not the select board, and take the politics out of it. Select board still has the authority whether or not to call an override. That's their call 100%. And that's Mass General laws, and I understand that. But maybe we need to have the finance committee drive the budget and set the guidance for the town administrator, and then work with the select board on whether or not we cut the budget, whether or not we go for an override, or whatever it is that we do. Maybe that's the answer. I guess I lied. I guess I said I was going to stop talking, and I can't help myself. I apologize.
I like to talk too, but no, I understand what that's I like that. I like your idea of changing the policy, because maybe that's what needs to be done. I don't know that's the correct answer, but I see your direction and I understand it and I agree.
Dan?
So, if I'm recalling correctly, I think that according to the charter, it's just the town administrator's budget, and the select board advises him, and then the town administrator presents it to town meeting. So it, but that aside, I think the uh, important factor here is the select board is elected and by the voters. And it seems to me like that causes a lot of fear in some select board members of what the voters will think. And there's a lot of caution, and it we need some bold leadership right now, and it feels like that's not coming from the select board as much as I would like it to. And I think we, as the finance committee, appointed, we're a little bit shielded from that. And I think I think Mark might agree with this, that that is part of what gives us some more wiggle room to suggest things that may or may not be popular, and put the ideas out there and get them tested. Like the idea that maybe there are people in the community who would like to pay more in taxes to get more and better services. It sounds like that's really not something that the elected officials in town are willing to say out loud. But we're a little bit insulated from that. So I think it's not an official part of the process, but I think that's an important thing that the finance committee brings to this conversation.
Skip.
I was just going to talk a little bit about the charter did change our charge in pre-charter with a 3-member board of selectmen and the town financial people. We were a lot more involved in the budgeting process. That got taken out. I don't know how you would enroll it back to that time, or if we would look to see some other stuff. But it would still be exceedingly difficult for us to try to put a budget together or try to, act as an appointed board, putting a budget out there that doesn't answer to the people whose money you're spending. That's not really right either.
Thanks, Al. Okay. Are there any final thoughts or comments? Okay. I'll look to reconvene us in early January. I suppose we could make that commitment now. Does anyone have any objections or thoughts about that?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Just not on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Skip, we're a Wednesday club.
Wow. All right, so as long as we start after 7:30.
We do Thursdays too.
Yeah, well, that's a fair point. We do Thursdays as well. What do we think about, for Skip, for you, what do we think about Thursday the 8th?
I have the Affordable Housing Trust that night.
The 15th?
Now,
Evan says no.
go ahead and do it on the day before. Do it on the 7th. I'll come.
Are you sure?
Yeah, If you just start a little bit later.
Skip will just
Start at
complain
7.
about it.
Honestly, that's the reality, is it not? All right, let's intend to convene on the 7th at 7, but we'll hold a we'll keep a plate warm for Skip. After, as a continued part of this conversation, and to continue pushing from the best of our chartered capabilities, right? I'm very particularly interested in understanding where we would begin to make the contingencies, where those cuts would first be seen, and how we can, if at all possible, quantify, but certainly can qualify the impact that we could see through those, because that's a massive part of the messaging. To Mark's point, we're certainly running out of time, but that doesn't mean that we have zero time, right? And I think 9 large brains together, we can figure out the best path forward here, along with the select board's guidance. Angelina?
Yeah, I mean, I know that we don't have really the authority to ask for what we'd like to see, and that's more the select board giving direction. But I personally would like to see things like the schools, like BVT and the Aggie and all these places that we send students, as part of a larger discussion of like, what things do we have to provide as a town, and what things are we providing that are like nice to have, but we're not like obligated to provide. So I don't know, Evan, as you're doing your potential cuts budget, and this is more of like a higher level discussion I think that the select board needs to have about where we're actually spending our money, and what things do we have to do versus what things are we doing that it's nice to do, but it's not like we're not obligated to do it.
That's a fair way to cut that ask. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. I believe we have one last piece on the agenda, which is to just approve meeting minutes.
I move we approve the meeting minutes for October 16th and 20th as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes for those 2 dates as presented. We'll take a roll call vote. Angelina?
Hi.
Skip?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Heather? Mark?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Victoria's aye. That motion is approved unanimously. Okay, and with that, I think let's close out this particular meeting. Jay, Evan, thank you very, very much for answering all of our questions and for the great presentations.
This was a wonderful meeting, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Let's close it out. It's not a public hearing, right?
No, you can just end it.
Adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thanks, guys.